The mirror doesn't show the truth. It shows what you want to believe about yourself. And every time you stand in front of it, flexing, fixing, admiring, adjusting, you're not really looking at your reflection. You're looking for approval. You call it self-awareness. You call it self-love. But deep down, it's still the same craving, the hunger to be enough in someone else's eyes. The mirror lied to you. It told you that transformation is about appearance. That if you look composed, they'll think you're healed. That if you speak like you have wisdom, they'll assume you've found peace. But you haven't. You've just become good at pretending. You dress your pain in aesthetics. You hide your wounds behind routines and mantras. You wear discipline like armor because you can't bear the thought of being seen as weak again. But let me ask you, who are you when no one's watching? When the mirror is gone and all that's left is silence? Do you still believe in your growth then? Do you still love yourself when there's no validation, no praise, no post to prove it? Because if your healing only exists when it's visible, it's not healing. It's performance. We've built an entire generation on mirrors, screens that reflect our filtered versions back to us. We don't seek change. We seek confirmation. We don't want to evolve. We want to appear evolved. We've mistaken looking centered for being centered. We've mistaken aesthetic confidence for inner peace. And that's why we're restless. Why we're constantly comparing, scrolling, searching. We're chasing reflections instead of realities. We're mistaking surface for substance. And we wonder why, no matter how many habits we build, how many goals we achieve, how many quotes we memorize, we still feel hollow. Because you can't find your soul in a mirror. You can only find your ego there. And the ego will always whisper, almost. You're almost enough. But almost is a prison. A never-ending chase for a version of you that only exists when others are watching. So stop worshiping the mirror. Stop feeding the image that keeps you trapped. Look deeper. Past the reflection, past the facade, past the person you've trained yourself to appear as. You'll find something raw there, something trembling, something real. That's you, not the one the mirror lied about, but the one who's been waiting for you to finally stop pretending. We live in an age where pretending to heal is easier than actually healing. Where saying the right words feels more important than feeling the right things. We wear growth like a costume tailored with quotes, routines, and morning affirmations. And we convince ourselves that this, somehow, is transformation. But deep down, we know it's not. Because real growth doesn't need to be performed. It doesn't need to be documented or admired. It doesn't sparkle under the spotlight. It happens quietly, in the nights when no one is there to clap for you. In the mornings when you wake up tired of pretending you're okay. The mask of progress is seductive. It makes you feel powerful, composed, in control. It gives you a script, words to say, habits to mimic, a lifestyle to flaunt. But the truth, it's just another layer of your ego. You've replaced your old insecurities with prettier ones. You've stopped chasing attention from people, only to start chasing validation for being above them. You've stopped seeking approval through pleasure, only to seek it through pain. The pain of constant discipline, endless improvement, ceaseless control. You call it grind. You call it focus. But what if it's just fear? Fear of stillness, fear of failure, fear of being ordinary. The ego is clever. It adapts. When you kill its vanity, it returns wearing humility. When you silence its pride, it returns as self-awareness. It learns your language, It wears your face. It becomes the version of you that the world applauds. And you believe it. You call it growth because it looks different from who you used to be. But deep down, it's the same voice, whispering the same lie. You're not enough yet. That's the poison hidden inside progress. It tells you to keep becoming, but never to be. It keeps you moving, never arriving. It keeps you polishing the mask instead of removing it. You meditate to control your mind, not to understand it. You read to sound wise, not to become it. You let go of people, not out of peace, but out of pride. You pretend to be detached, but your ego is still addicted to being perceived as detached. And that's the trap. That's the cruel genius of the mask of progress. You think you've evolved past your ego, but it's still the one running the show. Real progress doesn't feel glamorous. It's not photogenic. It's uncomfortable. It's ugly. It's lonely. It's breaking cycles that once made you feel powerful. It's admitting that sometimes you're still lost, still angry, still scared. The mask wants to hide that. It wants to make healing look beautiful. But real healing is raw, violent, messy. It's the kind of growth no one claps for. The kind that doesn't fit in a caption. So ask yourself, what's really behind your progress? Is it peace or performance? Is it truth or ego in disguise? Because the moment you stop performing your growth, the moment you stop needing to be seen as improving, is the moment you finally start becoming. Perfection. The word itself tastes like control. Sharp, cold, impossible. It's the mirage we chase when we've lost faith in simply being human. It's the lie we tell ourselves when we're afraid to be seen as incomplete. We say we want peace, but what we really want is flawlessness. We want to be uncriticizable, untouchable. We want to rise so high that no one can ever look down on us again. That's not peace. That's fear dressed in ambition. Perfection is the ego's oldest trick. It whispers, you can't rest yet. Not until you fix everything. Not until you become everything. It keeps you running in circles, exhausted, polished, and secretly broken. And the world loves this version of you. The productive one. The high-performing, self-optimizing machine. The person who has it together. They'll clap for your progress, but they'll never see the price you pay for it. The anxiety behind your calm. The emptiness behind your achievements. The silence you call discipline because you're afraid of what's underneath it. You call it self-control, but it's not control. It's self-erasure. You're deleting the parts of you that don't look perfect. You're muting your chaos, your softness, your uncertainty, as if being human was something to be ashamed of. And every time you do, the ego smiles. Because perfection is its favorite disguise. It's how the ego survives in a spiritual world. It doesn't say, be better than them. It says, be purer than them. Be more healed. Be more aware. It doesn't chase power anymore. It chases purity. But don't you see? It's the same hunger, the same emptiness trying to look divine. You can meditate every morning, journal every night, speak like a sage. But if you can't admit that you're still broken, you're not free. You're just polished. Real growth isn't flawless. It's fractured. It's blood and forgiveness and starting over 1,000 times. It's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. And wholeness, that's not beautiful all the time. Sometimes it looks like letting go of what made you feel powerful. Sometimes it's admitting that you're tired of pretending. Sometimes it's falling apart in private because holding it together became a performance. The lie of perfection tells you that peace is found in control. But peace lives in surrender. It begins when you stop rehearsing who you think you should be and start remembering who you already are. A masterpiece that was never meant to be flawless, only real. Because perfection is the prison. But being real, being raw, that's where freedom begins. At some point, the mask cracks. It always does. No matter how polished, no matter how convincing, the weight of pretending becomes unbearable. And one day, maybe quietly, maybe violently, you realize you've been living your life trying to look alive. You've built a version of yourself for the world to worship, but you can't breathe behind its face anymore. That's the moment of truth, the death of image, the day you stop performing and start feeling. You'll know it's happening when the things that used to impress you feel empty. When your old victories start tasting like dust. When the mirror that once defined you becomes a stranger you can't recognize. Because image was never who you were. It was armor, a desperate attempt to control how you're remembered, when what you truly wanted was to be understood. But image is a liar. It demands perfection and punishes honesty. It rewards silence and kills authenticity. It will let you smile in front of thousands and cry alone in the dark. And the world won't notice, because the image you built was too convincing. They believed the illusion more than you did. So you learn to walk away from it. The version of you that had all the answers. The one that always looked composed. The one who played strong, because vulnerability didn't fit the brand. You bury that version, not with shame, but with grace, because it protected you once. It kept you alive when truth felt too heavy to hold. But now, it's suffocating you. So you let it die. You let the false confidence, the curated calm, the filtered soul, all of it, burn. And in the ashes, something begins to breathe again. You, the unedited, unfiltered, inconvenient truth of you. The version that cries mid-sentence and still chooses to rise the next day. The one who doesn't have to prove or pose or pretend. The death of image is not the end. It's resurrection. Because every identity built on ego must fall so that the self built on truth can finally stand. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand you. Let them say you've changed, because you have. You stopped existing for their eyes. You started existing for your own peace. The death of image is the beginning of freedom. And freedom is not glamorous. It's quiet. It's lonely. It's real. You'll lose followers. You'll lose applause. You'll lose the illusion of being put together. But you'll gain yourself. And that's the trade the ego will never understand. That losing everything fake is how you finally become whole. When the mask is burned. When the image has died. And the silence around you feels deafening. That's when the real work begins. Because freedom isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself, it whispers. And at first, you won't recognize the sound. It'll feel too still, too naked, too real. But then you'll breathe, really breathe, for the first time in years. The weight of pretending will fall off your shoulders, and you'll realize how heavy the illusion truly was. You'll feel fragile, uncertain, maybe even lost. Good. That's what being alive feels like before the ego rewrites it. You see, the world taught you to rise by becoming invincible. But real strength was never about being untouchable. It's about standing in your truth, even when it shakes. It's about owning your scars instead of hiding them. It's about walking into the fire without the armor, because you finally trust yourself to survive it. This is not the polished rise you see in highlight reels. This is the rise of the real you, the one who doesn't need applause to feel worthy, the one who doesn't chase validation to feel seen. You stop trying to become. You start to be. You no longer crave perfection. You crave peace. You no longer chase status. You chase stillness. You no longer need to be right. You just need to be true. And from that truth, power is born. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that liberates. The kind that looks at failure and says, I'll rise again. The kind that looks at rejection and says, I still have worth. The kind that looks at pain and says, you can't define me. The ego dies in that moment, not because you killed it, but because you outgrew it. You no longer need to prove you're enough. You finally become enough. And when that happens, something shifts. Your presence deepens, your energy steadies, your eyes stop searching for recognition. Because you found what every mask was hiding, what every illusion was protecting, your truth. And truth doesn't beg to be seen. It simply is. So rise, not for them, not for the world, but for the part of you that refused to die when everything else did. Rise for the nights you thought you'd never make it. Rise for the promises you broke, but still found the courage to rebuild. Rise for the version of you who wanted to give up, but didn't. Because that's the real victory, not the one they see, the one you feel. This is your rebirth, your quiet revolution. The moment you stop looking for light and realize you've been carrying it all along. You are not the image. You are not the mask. You are not the ego trying to prove itself immortal. You are what remains after all of that burns away. Raw, flawed, infinite, real, so rise. Not as the person you were trying to be, but as the person you were always meant to become. Every transformation ends with a fire. Not the one that destroys you, the one that reveals you. When everything false has burned away, when the noise has gone silent and the applause has faded, what remains isn't weakness, it's essence. The part of you that doesn't need approval to breathe, doesn't need recognition to exist, doesn't need to look powerful because it finally is. This is the moment most people never reach. Because they turn back when things start to burn. They mistake the collapse for failure, the silence for emptiness, the loss for punishment. But those who stay, those who stand inside the flames and refuse to run, they discover something sacred. The fire never came to take you. It came to purify you. It burns the ego, the pride, the false peace, the need to impress. It leaves only what can't be burned. Your truth. That's why the strongest people you'll ever meet are never the loudest. They don't glow because of attention. They glow because they've walked through fire and didn't lose themselves in it. They stopped asking, "Who am I supposed to be?" and started answering, "Who am I without the mask?" And when you reach that place, the quiet center after the chaos, you realize the most powerful thing you can ever do is not to become more, but to be less. Less afraid, less perfect, less concerned with being seen. You begin to move differently. You speak softer, but with more weight. You love without needing to control. You build without needing to prove. That's the fire's gift. It strips away everything temporary until the only thing left standing is you. Unfiltered, unfinished, unbreakable. So let it burn. Let the image collapse. Let the noise fade. Let the ego scream. And then fall silent. Because what rises after the fire isn't the old you rebuilt. It's the real you revealed. After the storm, after the breaking, after the smoke clears, there is silence. Not the kind that feels empty, but the kind that feels sacred. It's strange at first. You're so used to the noise, the chase, the proving, the endless hum of becoming. Now it's gone, and you're left with stillness so loud it almost frightens you. That's how you know you're finally free. Because the ego can't survive silence. It feeds on noise, on reaction, attention, comparison, chaos. But in the quiet, it starves. And when it dies, what's left behind isn't weakness. It's clarity. You start to see how much of your life was built on reaction, how much of your purpose was built on fear, how many choices you made just to keep your image alive. Now, with the ashes cooling beneath your feet, you see what never burned. The quiet power of awareness. The peace that doesn't need to prove itself. The strength that doesn't shout. You realize that growth was never about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who you were before the world told you to hide. The silence becomes your teacher. It humbles you. It slows you down. And in that stillness, you meet the version of yourself you've been running from. The one who doesn't need validation or recognition or perfection. Just truth. The silence is where you finally stop chasing the next version of you, where you stop demanding that life looks like a movie, where you stop measuring progress by noise, motion, or applause. It's where peace begins, not as a reward, but as a realization that you never needed to look healed to be healed, that you never needed to appear strong to be strong, that all along, the point wasn't to become more, it was to come home to yourself. So if you find yourself in that silence, don't rush out of it. Don't try to fill it with meaning or movement. Just listen. That quiet you feel, that's not emptiness. That's truth. That's your soul, no longer screaming to be seen, just whispering. You made it. There comes a moment when the journey no longer feels like a climb, when it stops being about reaching the top and starts being about standing still and understanding why you ever climbed at all. This is that moment, the quiet after the chaos, the breath after the battle, the truth after the illusion, everything you've been chasing, the validation, the admiration, the sense of worth. It was never out there. It was always here, buried under the noise, beneath the fear, hidden behind the ego's mask. The world taught you that value must be earned, that peace must be proven, that love must be deserved. But the truth is simpler and heavier. You were always enough. You just didn't believe it until everything that said otherwise burned away. All your life, you were told to shine, to stand out, to be seen. But maybe the real power was never in being seen. Maybe it was in seeing yourself clearly, without filters, without pretense, without fear. You fought wars inside your mind that no one will ever know about. You've lost yourself in people, in progress, in pain. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still standing, still becoming. That's strength, not the kind that roars, but the kind that whispers through the wreckage. I'm still here. So as you rise from the ashes, don't rush to rebuild the old image. Don't return to what nearly destroyed you. Don't mistake survival for stillness. Let this peace grow roots. Because now you know, you don't need to look powerful to be powerful. You don't need to appear healed to be healing. You don't need to prove your worth. You need to embody it. And that's the final word. The ego wanted to be admired. But the soul, it just wanted to be free. You've done enough performing. You've done enough proving. Now just be. No applause, no validation, no image left to protect. Only truth, only peace, only you. Real, raw, alive. The world may never understand this version of you, but that's fine. You didn't rise to be understood. You rose to be whole, fade to black.